Hello and welcome back to the Okanagan Reader. I'm your host, Jim Bowering. Today's reading is Chapter 25 of Green Comet, the first book in the Green Comet trilogy. Here's hoping this video doesn't come out jerky like the last one. In Chapter 25, Elgin and Frances decide to move in together. Elgin leaves the location and design to her because he doesn't care beyond the living together part. While house hunting, they come upon people having arguments about the debates. They learn more about the visitor.
Chapter 25. They move in together. They decided to move in together. Elgin's rooms wouldn't do, even though he was very comfortable there. Even with the medical equipment removed, it was still just 2 rooms. More than adequate for a single man, but too small for 2. Frances had a slightly larger set of rooms, which might have been all right, but she decided they should start fresh, rather than just move into her place. They took their time looking. There was no hurry, and there was no need to snap up the first thing they saw either. There was always more accommodation than needed in the Comet. They had plenty of room after all, and weren't afraid to use it. Frances thought it was an indicator of their general sense of optimism. Having more living space than they needed showed that there was an assumption, conscious or not, that they would need it in the future. Assuming that the population will grow, she told Elgin, is a good sign of optimism. They didn't see anything they liked, although they saw plenty that would do. Elgin was willing to take almost anything that was big enough. He instinctively understood that they needed enough room that they wouldn't get in each other's way. But after that, he figured they could make a home out of anything. Heck, he'd bunk down in an unused storage closet if he was sharing it with Fran. But she had more of a vision of what they needed, and he knew that her vision was better than his about such things. She suggested that they live on the square, in one of the apartments above the shops and offices. She thought it would be nice to sit on the balcony and watch people. It's the heart of the Comet, she said. It's where people come, where things happen. Okay, said Elgin. He liked the square. It was still sort of magical for him after the first time, and if it made Fran happy, then it made him happy. So they spent a lot of time there during the week before the vote. They saw the people watching the videos and discussing them. They overheard arguments, some of them quite heated, although never physical. Comet people, except in rare cases, didn't resort to violence over their opinions. They did allow themselves to have very energetic arguments, though, and they heard a few of those while they were apartment hunting. There was nothing available that suited their needs. The square was a popular place to live, and people tended to hang on to it once they got a place there. Other than a few one-roomers, the kind of thing that changed hands frequently, they couldn't find anything. It looked as if they would have to settle for something else. Then Elgin realized something. The end of the square where the video screens were set up, the yellow Comet end, didn't have any apartments. Even though it had a full complement of shops and offices, on the ground level it had nothing above that. The other 3 sides were pretty well completely developed right up to the ceiling, but the wall at the yellow end was blank. When he mentioned it to Fran, she looked and said, "Of course." Then she went quiet for a few minutes. Elgin let her think, while he looked at the blank wall and wondered. It didn't take long to figure out why the other sides, red, orange, and green, would be occupied while yellow wasn't. It was because of what happened to Yellow Comet. People, out of respect or because of superstition, were reluctant to live there. Elgin shrugged and resigned himself to not living in the square. Then Fran aroused herself and said, "Come on," grabbing his hand. She led him toward the yellow end, not telling him anything, but smiling to herself. Elgin was happy to let himself be towed along. When they got closer, they began to notice details about the people watching the videos. The indistinct raised voices ringing around the square could now be identified with individual people. One particularly robust-voiced man was gesticulating with his hands while pointing at the screens with one wing. The person he was shouting at probably couldn't hear him because she was doing much the same thing, only her voice was higher pitched. Someone in their small audience caught sight of Elgin and Frances and shushed them, quieting them just as the couple arrived. Everyone turned to look at them, and Elgin said to himself, "Uh-huh, there they are, sappy grins." They were still an item, still a phenomenon. Their love story was on its way to becoming a legend already. "Hello," said Frances. "I'm glad to see you're discussing the joining." She tipped her head toward the videos. The combatants glowered at each other, and one of their audience said, "Every day." Then with a laugh, "All day." Fran's laugh was musical, and not only to Elgin. She had a laugh that could make people feel special for causing it. "I'm glad," she said. "This is an important decision." "Oh, they're not arguing about that," said her informant. "They both think you're right, you and Elgin." "And Stanton," she said. "And don't forget Buzzard." They all agreed, nodding their heads. "I'm glad you agree with us, but what are you arguing about then, if it's all right to ask?" The woman spoke for them, one woman to another. "He thinks the rumple is wrong," she pointed with a thumb. "He thinks it should be higher." The man jumped in to clarify, and they almost got going again. Frances said, "You might be right. It is just a simulation, and based on preliminary data at that." The man lifted his chin at the woman. "Of course," Fran added, "it's Buzzard's data, and he's pretty thorough." There was a murmur of assent, and the woman looked pleased with herself. "But we'll find out who's right when the time comes, that is, if the people vote for the new plan." "Oh, they will," said the woman, to general agreement. "I hope you're right," said Fran, as she and Elgin carried on toward the yellow wall. She glanced back and saw the woman slip her arm through the man's. That pleased her so much that she did the same thing to Elgin. There was a faint suggestion of a collective awe behind them when she did. Elgin rolled his eyes, and she punched him on the arm. She took him up above the storefronts to the blank wall, then left to the corner where yellow met orange. There she turned them around, and they checked out the view. Dominant was the green side from where it joined yellow's other corner, sweeping the length of the square to where it met the red end. That was good, since people tended to gravitate to the green side, and this gave them a good view of that. Elgin's attention was drawn down the green wall to the red, and inevitably to the pillars at the entrance, where he entered the square for the first time. His mind was flooded with memories, not as powerful as the first experience, but good reminders. "So," said Fran, "what do you think?" "Nice view," he said. "No, silly. How would you like to live here?" Elgin looked at the expanse of unmarked ice behind them. "Is there an apartment behind here? Or are you thinking of pitching a tent?" He squeezed closer to her. "I'd love to live in a tent with you." She kissed him. "We definitely must go tenting soon." She slapped the wall. "For now, though, how would you feel about building right here?" He was startled. "Would that be okay? I mean, nobody lives here. Isn't the yellow wall off limits?" "Not exactly. It's true that nobody's living here yet, but I think that's just hesitancy." "Nobody's doing it, so everyone thinks there must be a reason? So nobody does it?" "Yes." Fran moved back from the wall and struck a pose, with a hand on her cheek, that women had used since they were assessing their caves. Elgin, as wise men have always been, was quiet and attentive. She said, "We can have 2 bedrooms and 2 living rooms across the front, all sharing a big balcony. The bedrooms will be at opposite ends." Elgin imagined it, and it rang true. In the back, 2 bathrooms with a large kitchen, dining, common area in between. It sounded great to Elgin, but why 2 of everything? We could get by with 1 of each, at least for now. If she caught the implication of that last part, she didn't let it show. Someone might stay over, so an extra bedroom. It will be nice to have a bathroom for company, and if one of us is entertaining in one living room, it will be nice to have the other one available. It was all very logical and, as usual, right. He was only thinking of it as a place for them to live, and she was already planning for guests. Further proof that she was smarter than him. "So, let's see," she said. "If we make it 20 meters long and about 12 deep, how will that be?" She looked at Elgin. That gives about 5 meters for each room, less the walls. It depends on how big you want the rooms. He looked at the wall, but he was seeing what she had described. How high is it going to be? We need it good and high, she said, at least 5 meters, like most other interiors. The rooms are going to be nearly cubical, he said, depending on where we put the interior walls. He looked at it for a while, imagining being in it. I think it will work. Good, she said. And it's an even divisor of the width of the wall, 60 meters. That will simplify future apartments. There she was again, thinking beyond the present problem. He just sighed and gave her a kiss. At work the next day he was talking to Stanton about their house hunting. As engineers do, they were soon into the details. How would it be made? How would the rooms be divided? Could there be a more efficient layout? Oh no, said Elgin. That's her department. She knows what we need. My job is to make it happen. Stanton nodded. You're right. Besides, it was Fran's idea, right? That's right. She just seems to know what she wants. And you don't care, as long as she's happy and you're together. Exactly. That made him think about them being together, and that made him think about how they seemed to be everybody's favorite couple. Stanton, he said. What? When is it going to wear off? I mean, we've been together for a while now, but people are still acting mushy. I don't know. Is this normal? Do people always act this way? I've seen other couples. They look happy, but nobody's looking at them the way people look at us. I can't really help you, Elgin. There's always this reaction when a young couple falls in love, but you're right. It tends to wear off. I've never seen it like this. Well, I hope it wears off soon, complained Elgin. It's getting so I don't want to go out in public. Oh, that's not entirely true, is it? When Elgin looked at him, he smiled. You don't care where you are when you're with her, do you? Well, no. You don't really care where you are, or who's there, or what they're doing because you're focused on her. That's true. And she's focused on you the same way. She is? Yes, you idiot. Everyone can see that. Stanton shook his head, smiling indulgently. Everyone can see it. When you two are there, that tends to stand out. Elgin thought about that. But isn't it the same for other couples who have fallen in love? Yes, but there's something different about you guys. I can't quite pin it down, but something seems special. He shrugged, frustrated with his inability. You seem to, I don't know, glow or something when you're together. Oh, said Elgin, because that rang a bell. I do feel like I'm glowing when I'm with her, but I thought it must be the same for everybody. It is, said Stanton, but you guys have taken it beyond normal. It's not that it's different, it's just like you've taken the usual stuff and, well, refined it maybe. He shrugged again. Elgin nodded, resigned but happy. It looked as if he'd have to put up with the sappy grins, but it was worth it. What's it going to be like when we move in together? I'm sure it will ratchet up another notch or two, but I don't think you or Fran will care too much. With Stanton's help, they got hold of the builders and began the arrangements. Elgin drew up the plans himself, not having much work to do, as they awaited the outcome of the vote. They had 2 meetings with the builders before the work began. In the first, they told them what they wanted. Then they had to sleep on it and come to the second meeting with any new thoughts or changes. Once the work commenced, they couldn't change their minds again. The builders and fabricators started work on the day of the vote. Polling was open all day, so nobody had any trouble casting their ballot. The turnout was excellent, with nearly everyone voting. That meant there were almost 2,000 votes cast, since everyone who understood how to do it was an eligible voter. There were no restrictions based on age or mental capacity. They believed that everyone who had a stake in the outcome should have the right to vote. The only exception was anyone who committed a crime that was proved to have harmed the comet. They lost their franchise for the duration of their sentence. There was no one in that position for this vote. The people voted overwhelmingly, by a margin of 4-1 in favor of Shimmer's plan. There was a festival atmosphere in the square from the beginning, and once the results became obvious, it turned into a celebration. Everyone, including Winston, stopped and congratulated Frances and Elgin, who spent most of the day in the square with Buzzard and Stanton. They were all energized and already thinking about tomorrow and getting back to work. To add to the excitement, in the evening there was an announcement over the public address system. Accumulating data and calculations had led to the conclusion, with a high degree of probability, that the visitor was artificial. Here was solid evidence of intelligence from another world, and it was coming to them. The celebration became a party that kept some people up all night.